Okay, so anyway, this is my presentation, Building a Better Monster. Here's me. You've probably already read my stuff. There are links here that you can use when I send you the PowerPoint presentation. I guess the important thing here is that my two novels, Junction and Interchange, are all about speculative biology and aliens. That's their major draw. First Life is a comic book, and it does have a few speculative animals in it, although they're pretty subtle. My other stuff that's been published, not really. But you can join me on my various social media things and see more. Okay, but let's get down to it. So the first of the 2/3 of the things I want to talk about is biomechanics. And this a good illustration here is the hyrax and the elephant. These are two related animals. They diverged maybe 50 million years ago, somewhere around there, and they have basically the same kind of body, but one of them is a lot bigger than the other. A hyrax is about this big; it's about the size of a rabbit. So, asking the audience participation, what's the difference? What difference do you see between these skeletons? I'm a teacher by trade.
There's no tail on the hyrax.
The hyrax is interesting. It has no tail, and that I don't know why. That's an interesting problem for the hyrax to have. The ancestor must have had a tail, but hyrax has lost it.
I thought tails assisted somewhat with an animal being able to pass the solids, the undigested solids.
Huh.
Sphincter muscle.
I didn't know about that. It could very well be. But I don't know.
That's why little Manx cats.
Yeah.
You know, they sometimes need help.
Oh,
they just can't. Yeah.
They can't do it by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I know that elephants are what are called hindgut fermenters. They eat a lot of plant material, and they don't digest it very much. And it all sort of comes out. And so elephant dung looks like hay. It looks like sort of dirty grass. And they often go back and eat it again. Rabbits do the same thing, but I don't know whether hyraxes do it. So this is an interesting turn this conversation has taken that I did not expect. But
you never know what to expect with this group.
But the moral of the story is there are many ways to digest grass. You might be like a cow, where you burp it up and chew it again and swallow it, or you might be like a rabbit or an elephant, where it passes through you and then you eat it again. And there are
that's a perfectly valid approach. I mean, if it went through your digestive system and there's still nutrient to be extracted, run it through again. It's sort of like, well, I ran the dishwasher and my plates aren't clean, so I'll just run them through again.
Try again, right? So there's the idea. So maybe this will inspire something. But other things about the skeletons. Any other differences that you notice?
Well, the hyrax has the feet held flat, and the elephant has the kind of tippy toe arrangement. And I happen to know that's because they have big fleshy pads that are actually under the actual feet, the foot bones, and that's what they step on, which again relates to the hyrax is small and the elephant is enormous.
Right. So you can see in the picture here, they're in dark gray, and so they're these big fatty balls that cushion the feet, and the hyraxes don't need them, right? Also, there's the bones of the legs are much thinner relative to their length in a hyrax, and it doesn't hold its legs straight under its body the way that an elephant does. So elephants need to have these columnar legs, and if you think about a big sauropod like Brontosaurus, it also had big columnar legs like this. It didn't spend a lot of time prancing around with its legs bent because it couldn't support its weight that way. The other thing that I notice is the lumbar vertebrae here in the hyrax. They're a lot longer. In the elephant, there's not much there. Again, because it's hard to support that weight. Okay, good enough. So I'm going to give you a challenge now. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Please get a piece of paper or open the Paint program on your computer and draw a mouse the size of an elephant. What would a mouse have to look like if it was the size of an elephant? So, are you ready? Any questions?
No.
No? All right, go for it. I'm timing you. You have 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so we can all show each other our pictures. So, show me yours.
Ooh,
I like Robert's one. It's on its hind legs.
Just notes.
Oh, and Susan also put it on its hind legs. That's interesting. Tom, what did you put on? Let me see.
I made mine more like a big, heavy kind of kangaroo sloth thing,
Yeah.
where its tail would be balancing its body.
It's
This
giving it-
more looks more like a T-Rex, but
Yeah.
is supposed to be a mouse with
Okay.
a big fat old tail.
But you're thinking of it using its tail as sort of a third leg to give it some more.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, does anyone else? Well, can you
I
show
did mine in
yours?
words.
I can't see
I
it.
can't see it. It's a mirror effect.
I just did mine in words.
Okay, tell us about it then.
Well, I was thinking you have this huge tail, right? And one of the things with iguanas that you have to be careful of as a pet owner is if they're not socialized, they use that tail as a whip.
Mhm.
And looking at the fact that the tail was about the same length as the mouse's body, that would be a massive weapon. And looking at the legs, it can probably jump the height of like an office building. Tail. So this would be terrifying because, you know, rats are scavengers. So at that scale, it could eat everything from people to trees.
That was another question I forgot to ask.
Because
What does it eat? So, okay, so it's an omnivore. It eats everything.
It's an omnivore.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can't hide from it in the dark. You can't climb something and get away from it. This can squeeze through things that seems like it shouldn't be able to for its size. So this is terrifying.
Very nice. Jacob, what does yours look like? Or do you
I didn't
not have
actually draw one, but I was looking at the skeleton thinking, I can see like the pink, is that cartilage?
well,
Its
now
ears and
I'm not
nose.
looking at it anymore. The pink part, no. I think I'm not sure why it's pink. It's thinner bones, but they're definitely bones. Like those are the tail vertebrae and the feet and the hands.
What, and the ears and nose specifically, it looked like it was pinker.
Oh well, so the ears and the nose are definitely on my screen. They look blue, but maybe
Maybe it's blue, I don't know.
okay.
Am I colorblind? I don't know.
I don't know, but
But I was imagining that those would have to probably be thicker. Because if it's getting bigger, I mean, those are kind of thicken up, and I wasn't sure if they might become more of a bone structure. And definitely, you know, the bones in general having to be thicker because to support its weight.
definitely.
And more or less, I imagine it becoming more elephant looking really than a mouse. And I started wondering, is the elephant just a really big mouse?
Well, yeah, so elephants evolved from something that looked like a hyrax. So something small and if not mouse-like, then rabbit-like. I mean, all mammals were small and looked like that before the dinosaurs went extinct. So our ancestor looked something like a little squirrel, tree climbing shrewish thing. And the ancestor of elephants looked sort of like a rabbity thing. They all looked like small, nondescript mammals. So they all had to go through. A good example is Intricotherium, which was another giant creature, bigger than an elephant, and it was related to rhinos. So it's not at all related to elephants, but it looks a lot like an elephant. It's big and wrinkly. They had a long neck rather than a trunk. But David, what do you got for us? I'm sorry, David, we can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay. I went off on the question in my mind of what do mice eat, and I don't know what mice eat, except when you bait the mouse trap, you put cheese, which made me think that a giant mouse would eat cows. And I don't, what do mice eat? They eat peanut butter, but I don't know what the large equivalent of that is. But I would think absolutely this is going to be a ravaging carnivore and a very difficult thing to have, in your house.
No
They'd be
kidding.
in your house. They'd be. And probably just as a matter of revenge, they probably would eat cats. Don't know. Ancestral revenge.
Ironic. I like it. Who hasn't shown one? Gay, have you shown yours?
Well, I was looking more into about the possibility of a mouse scaling up to the size of an elephant. And from what I understand in the scientific community, it would take 24 million generations for a mouse to grow to the size of an elephant. And considering how quickly mice propagate, I would think that 24 million generations have done come and gone. So why haven't they evolved to the size of an elephant?
Right.
So I'm thinking that led to your second question as to what do they eat? They probably ate something that mutated them so that they would grow to a size of an elephant. Oh, that's a whole different topic.
Yes.
Monster, because before it was just evolution. But now we've got some sort of uranium enriched, plutonium activated critter.
Right.
And my cat says that no, mice would not survive. She would still destroy it.
Good. Your cat, it has it handled. We will talk about mutation later. That's number 2 of the 3 things I want to talk about. I have heard of that. There's a sort of a thought experiment about that, and it was something like if there was an assumption, if every generation is 1% bigger than the previous one, or something like that, then it would take 25 generations to become the size of an elephant. But that's a starting assumption. So there's no reason to believe that mice want to become bigger with every generation.
That kind of assumes that, the selective pressure on mice, is to become bigger and will always be to become bigger.
Right. And so selective pressure could point in any direction, depending on what's going on in the environment. The mice that survive might be smaller than their parents.
Well, if you look at the different extinction events throughout the history of the planet, you see there were times when that's what survived, were the mountains.
Were small things, right? And so that seems to be a pattern, in fact, where you have some kind of terrible calamity, like an asteroid hits the Earth and it kills all the large animals, and that throws open a lot of ecological space for small animals to get larger. And then another calamity happens and it wipes out the large ones again. And this is a sort of a pattern that we can see. But Sean, do you have a mouse for us?
No, I don't.
That's
I did it more as a, close my eyes on thought experiment, and I just kind of swelled the mouse up to the size of an elephant, and then I got into, okay, so do you, if you, going back to, I think it was Amber who was talking about the tail, if you include that into the length dimension, then the mouse is going to be considerably smaller. But if you're just doing the body without the tail, the mouse is going to be enormous.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just kind of imagined my mouse growing to that size, and it didn't really change much.
Okay.
So
that's an exercise that might be a helpful exercise. When I said size, I was thinking like weight, but whatever. It's a useful exercise. Sometimes if you visualize the animal in your head, it can make you notice things intuitively. Imagine
Well,
the mouse jumping.
I will say that if your mouse, Sean, if your mouse just stayed looking like a mouse, something would have to change because now it's having to eat enough energy to supply that body.
Right.
So its digestive system has to change drastically. And then with that, the way it gathers in, takes in all those nutrients, the mouth structure would have to change.
Right.
So you may not be able to have a little narrow mouth anymore. It might be something big that needs to get in all those nutrients.
Yeah.
Elephants don't, the elephants aren't actually that big.
I don't know. I don't want one in my house.
What are you compared to what?
Just in absolute terms. I mean, if you want a big mouth, the go-to is snakes because, they have the Titanic gape.
Yeah.
And, big cats and, really just big cats because, dogs don't have enormous mouths either.
So if you're thinking about gathering food, what elephants have is a trunk. And the trunk can move around independently from the elephant, and it can grab things and pull it into the mouth. And sauropods had rather small heads, but very long necks, which gave them a similar sort of radius where they didn't have to walk very much in order to gather food from all over the place. And it's interesting to note that all these animals are plant eaters. And there were big dinosaurs that ate the even bigger herbivores. And you might say Tyrannosaurus was about the same volume as an elephant, but it ate things that were bigger volume. So the question of what does it eat is an important one. I did something. Can you share? Yeah, you can do it. Yay, there it is. Beautiful.
We have a little human there for scale. So the tail is
in
much
a very
smaller.
dangerous position.
Yeah, the tail is much smaller because it's no longer needed. You get you get the thick straight legs because it needs to carry the weight. And of course the body gets much thicker because it needs to house a larger gut. When you get really big, mammals, that size, they do tend to have the short bodies, just because, it's easier to carry around.
Well, there's another thing with mammals, which is that mammals give birth, and the baby comes out of the birth canal, and it can't fall very far. Otherwise, it would get injured. And so there's a really interesting theory that mammals can't get as big as dinosaurs did because we don't lay eggs. So we can't drop eggs out of us. We have to drop the whole baby, and it's just too dangerous once you get above a certain size.
Of course, the other thing with eggs is, the dinosaurs actually proportionately grew a lot bigger because dinosaur eggs, the largest dinosaur eggs are only the size of grapefruit.
Right.
And it's estimated the biggest an egg can physically be is about the size of a rugby football, because any thicker than that, the egg has to be so thick to hold in its contents that the baby inside isn't going to be able to chisel its way out.
Yeah. So physics is important. We're going to talk about that too in the square cube law. Very good mouse. Pavlin, did you have a mouse for us? Yeah. Tom, do you have a mouse for us? Let's see. I'm watching. Make it.
Yes, it looks more like a giant bear.
There we go. There we go. I see it. You have it. You have it resting on its haunches, sort of. What would it look like if it was standing up straight?
Probably about twice as high,
Okay.
which would be an elephant size, because I had to draw a person there so I could get the size.
Mm-hmm. It has very big ears relative to its body.
It has very big ears, and the heat exchange required by elephants.
That's why.
I think would apply to any mammal that large. So
Yeah.
that's why I made them large.
Yeah, I like the way you think. Right, because as an animal gets bigger, the amount of surface area it has to exchange heat through becomes smaller relative to the amount of stuff that's inside it. So large animals start to have a problem with overheating because there isn't enough surface area to get the heat out. And so elephants have wrinkly skin, which increases the surface area, and these big flappy ears to help. And the ears are rich with blood vessels, so they can get that heat out of them.
Of course, if you're in a very cold climate, then it's actually helpful because that's why Siberian tigers are bigger than Bengal tigers because Siberian tigers are in Siberia, and the bigger you are, the more heat you retain.
Right, and so that tends to be, and so polar bears are also bigger than other bears. There tends to be an increase in mass, and especially in this body shape that's very chunky and round as you get farther toward the poles. Yeah, you can Google gigantothermy and find that. Susan, do you have a mouse for us? Let me see. There it is, right? Standing. So you have another sort of like a kangaroo. It's on its hind legs. What does it do with its tail? You're muted.
Sorry, I mean, I was very unimaginative and I basically thought hairy, this is a moose rex. I quickly went off and checked my Latin for a mouse. And the tail is part of the balancing because it's basically a furry T-Rex.
Very nice.
So the front paws are much smaller and big strapping legs.
Right.
And this is a person for scale.
This is a person in grave danger.
Yep.
The other dangerous thing is that, I guess it's a carnivore.
I'm just channeling T-Rex. I'm
Okay.
afraid.
Because it's a carnivore, that implies something even bigger that it eats. And so that's an interesting question to answer in your further speculation.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's the next bigger version of the mouse.
That's an herbivore that it eats. That's even cooler. That implies a whole ecosystem made of various kinds of mice. Yeah. Grace, you show us yours again. Well, I remember it anyway. And it was also, and you talked about it. It was on its hind legs, and it used its tail as a third leg. And there is a real creature like that whose name was something. I don't remember its name. If you Google giant extinct kangaroo, you'll probably find it. There was a giant extinct kangaroo, right? And it's interesting because it wasn't just a scaled up version of a normal kangaroo. It probably didn't hop. It probably walked like this, like a human. And it had, instead of the 3 toes that kangaroos walk on, it only walked on the middle toe, which is what horses do. So it also had different. Also, I remember it had very long arms, so it probably used its arms to grab food the way that an elephant uses its trunk. So it was using different strategies to do the same things. Okay, Audrey, what do you have for us?
Oh, no. I have a thing about those type of creatures, so I couldn't participate. I'm averting my eyes actually from y'all's drawings. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, in that case, we'll move on from mice